Greetings. My name is Alice Treves, and I am the social emotional counselor at the Marin School. I also have a private practice in Marin. I hope this finds you all healthy and relatively happy at home. I am going to be sharing suggestions and reflections, talking about some of the pitfalls and challenges that I'm hearing and seeing people struggle with, and also talk about some of the opportunities that I see available through this shelter-in-place experience. Let's go ahead and dive in. I also wanted to let you know that I am having the in vivo experience of having teenagers at home. I have a middle schooler and a high schooler who I am sheltering in place with as well. One story I wanted to share is that I was talking to my daughter recently and saying, if you had told me 2 months ago that we would be living at home together full time, we'd be together all the time, she would be homeschooling, I'd be working from home, I would have told her that's not going to happen. I can't see myself doing that. And yet here we are. So it's incredible how adaptable we are all being. And also, there's obviously challenges that go along with this, but human adaptation is in the works. So one thing, everything is changing in the world right now. We have gone through such upheaval as a global community. But one thing that has not changed is that the goal of parenting to support independent, viable beings in the world has not changed. We're still focusing on this goal, and as parents, a lot of the load of this is on us right now, whereas we distribute that load in normal times. So I wanted to start with really giving people permission and a kind of perspective on taking the pressure off. So I was recently, towards the beginning of this shelter-in-place order, I read a great article in the San Francisco Chronicle by a professor from the University of Toronto named Aisha Ahmed. And she's an academic. She also has been in high conflict areas around the world doing field research and gone through a lot of, traumatic upheaval situations throughout the world. And she was asked to kind of reflect on what could be helpful. And what she said is that to lower our expectations of ourselves, at least in the beginning of making a transition to a whole new reality like we've been going through, that it takes time to adjust, and so to expect ourselves to have the same level of productivity is unrealistic. But certainly you're more settled in, I imagine, at this point, and starting to recover your sense of being able to be productive. But it took a while to adjust, and so to give ourselves that space. And then this is a great public service announcement by a psychologist, parenting expert that I also think has been helpful for parents, taking the pressure off. Parents, what we're being asked to do is not humanly possible. There's a reason we are either a working parent, a stay-at-home parent, or a part-time working parent. Working, parenting, and teaching are 3 different jobs that cannot be done at the same time. It's not hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because it's too much. Do the best you can. When you have to pick, because at some point you will, choose connection. Pick playing a game over arguing about an academic assignment. Pick teaching your child to do laundry rather than feeling frustrated that they aren't helping. Pick laughing and snuggling and reminding them that they are safe. If you're stressed, lower your expectations where you can and virtually reach out for social connection. We are in this together to stay well. That means mentally well, too. So I don't want to minimize that there's a great deal of suffering and tragedy associated with the global pandemic that we're all experiencing right now. And as we shelter in place together as families, I do feel like there is an opportunity for us to to be gleaned from being together. I think there are, different levels of opportunity that are going on in the world right now. But primarily I want to focus on what's happening in our family systems. So at a basic level, there is an opportunity for us to connect more deeply as a family unit. It's not always going to feel good and rosy. There's definitely, like every other experience that I'm hearing from different sources, that it's going to go through waves. And so you might be having moments of real sweetness and togetherness, and then there's a dispersing, everyone to their own corner, or there's more conflict. But the opportunity to come together and enjoy each other's company and bond more deeply is really here, and I hope you're having some moments of that. There's an opportunity for kids to begin to be more at ease and watch what emerges from that. Just seeing what their natural inclinations are when things are more settled for them. There's not as much external pressure. So you might be noticing that kind of dormant interests or creative inspiration is emerging from your kids. I think they need the space for that to emerge. So to put down, electronic distractions and be able to let that emerge. But again, hopefully you're seeing some of this. I'm definitely seeing it in my kids, and I think the opportunity is there. This is what I see on a more global level, is that the entire human movement is being slowed down on the planet right now. That's having detrimental effects on our economy, of course. But we're also having the ability to start to focus on what is most important as we do slow down, to simplify and kind of prioritize that, maybe we didn't need as much movement as we had, or we didn't need to be spending as much money, or, acquiring things in the same way. So I do think this is kind of a golden opportunity for humanity right now. And also, you might be noticing that, some form of that in your own family system, of just going back to the basics. There, at a time like this, it's kind of like a reset opportunity. It is, again, a really amazing opportunity to start to establish new habits and rhythms, both as a family and individuals. So it's a great time to institute those changes, to start afresh with, your dinner time rituals. I'd be really interested to hear, how different families are doing this. I've heard some wonderful anecdotes of what people are doing. In our family, we've established a dinner time gratitude sharing, so everyone shares something they're grateful for at that time. And gratitude, focusing on what we're grateful for has other implications, positive implications. I've heard about families who are sharing poems at dinner, going on family walks, doing little kind of workshops together. There's all kinds of things, and again, I would be so interested to have a gathering place where we can, share what some of those new habits are that we're instituting. To explore our creative interests and hobbies. This is not just for our kids, but for us as adults as well. Of course, we probably all set some kind of intention at the beginning, and I've seen some very funny memes about how, the best of intentions are not always realized. But it is, again, in that same spirit of the reset opportunity here. There is an opportunity to there's more space, potentially. Some of us might be busier than others, and certainly the space gets taken. the creative interests that you might have, and developing those and hobbies. There's an opportunity to use this as a time for personal growth. As we are sheltering in place, it's almost like a retreat opportunity. But not only that, we're left with, when we're alone or with our families, the tendencies that we have are our mind. In our mind, in terms of our thinking habits, our emotional patterns that we fall back on, it's all going to be there for us. And so there is this opportunity to do some inner work and kind of reset our personal habits in those ways. Also, again, in the spirit of reset, if you've always wanted to have a meditation practice or another kind of spiritual practice or religious reflection time that you do, or prayer time, I think this is, again, a wonderful opportunity for that. And lastly, it's a really great opportunity to start to think about others, continue to think about others and how we can be of service in the world. We need to be creative because in-person service is limited, but there are still some wonderful ways to be of service, to spend our time thinking about other people, which is not only good for them, it's good for us, and it's really good for the fabric of society. So I want to talk a little bit about the emotional aspect of being together and come back to this metaphor of, riding the waves or the waves that are happening. Again, anecdotally, I'm really noticing that experiences are coming in waves for people. So they'll, be really kind of enjoying the experience of simplifying, being at home, connecting with your family, and then all of a sudden, you'll have kind of a down day, or certainly there's a lot of anxiety that's running rampant, and so, people can get caught in anxiety. First thing I want to say about this is that I don't know that anyone in the world right now, unless you're really buffered from knowing about this experience for some reason, or you're in a place where there's very little exposure to the pandemic, that everyone is facing some form of insecurity, whether it's the physical insecurity of, fear of contagion, or people that you love getting ill, or just feeling vulnerable in that way. And this is particularly challenging threat because it's an invisible threat. So there's the physical insecurity, the financial insecurity. Certainly, I don't think we're done with people facing that and the threat of that. And insecurity that comes in the wake of it, and then the emotional insecurity from social isolation that certainly a lot of people are facing right now. We are social creatures. We need contact. We thrive from contact on many different levels, not just emotionally. So this is certainly a challenging time. In terms of how to be with the waves, I would say, starting with accepting that it's normal, and being kind and gentle with yourself, and using this metaphor, become like a surfer and learn how to ride them, kind of like enjoying the process as much as possible, or going into it. And it is just knowing that it is a challenging time for everyone. So normalizing it on that level. The breath is a resource that we all have until we don't. And it is a great, it's not for everyone. Some people get anxious when they focus on their breath, but it is a, pretty constant access point to be able to anchor your experience, become aware of what's going on. Physiologically, when you take deep breaths, it does ease anxiety and create more of a sense of well-being. Along with that, becoming aware of the physical sensations that are going along with your emotions, and noting those. Again, being, just a benign observer of what's going on, not necessarily judging that. This is all normal. And then at a deeper level, inquiring about what's being triggered for you, taking it, to a more reflective place on, okay, this kind of can go back to tracking our patterns of thought, our patterns of, emotional triggers, and just becoming increasingly aware and inquiring. So trying to control things that we do not have control over is a recipe for increased anxiety. But exercising control in ways that we can helps ease anxiety and a sense of well-being. And so finding ways that you can control things in your environment, yourself, your own behavior. You can control, how much exposure you have out in the world. And flexing that muscle gives you a sense of agency in the world. Reminding yourself or your child that this is not going to last forever. Certainly it's gone on longer than many of us anticipated, and it probably will continue. But we'll get back to, maybe it'll be a new norm, but we'll get back to a place where we don't have quite this many restrictions on our movement in the world, and the activities that we can participate in. So with all of these things, I would say validation is really the baseline of really validating that this is hard, and uncertainty as human beings is generally not a comfortable place. So really validating that is a great place to start. Emotional contagion. So there, there's a lot of evidence that we affect each other emotionally. So that can be for better or worse. It's natural for us to be going through these waves, and when we get kind of stuck or toxic in our, emotional expression, where we're taking it out on other people, or we just, can't get out of a rut that we're in emotionally, that has an effect on the people around us. And in reverse, if we're, cultivating a sense of calm and, finding the positivity in what's going on, that is also contagious. I want to share another level of this metaphor that I learned about this past weekend. This wonderful teacher was sharing that her husband is a whitewater rafter, and that he uses the metaphor of the classes of rapids that river guides, are well aware of, and they, I believe, go 1 through 6. And, beyond 3, if you fall out of the boat, it becomes dangerous. Or even if you're in the boat, the level of rapids become really dangerous. I think at a level 6, if you fall out of the boat, it's almost certain death. But what she was talking about is that that it seems like as a culture right now, we're in like class 5 rapids pretty consistently. We're all in it together, and we might be in different boats, but we're all in these rapids. We're all facing it. And the wisdom of the guides, river guides, is that you don't focus, when you're in intense rapids, you don't focus on the things that can take you down, that can take you out. You don't focus on the rock or the stick, the log. You become aware of those, but your focus is on the through line. Your focus is on the openings that you see. The possibility of what can emerge, of where we're going all together. And when you start focusing on that, there's certainly hope that is instilled in that. You enjoy the ride more, and I think it goes along with there's opportunity to be had there. I've also been doing some mountain bike riding lately, and it's a similar experience of following the through line. and not, not focusing on the things that can take you out or the fear. And if you're just focused on things that you're afraid of, you're going to have a more unpleasant experience, but you're also more likely to be to hit one of those things as a barrier. So I wanted to share some practical tools for parents at this time. First of all, you're not going to necessarily dramatically change your parenting style through this period. So become aware of, what your parenting style with. I think consistency is more important than a particular kind of parenting style. So just noticing, where you're at, and given that, then strike a balance between being overly controlling and, completely hands off. Find that sweet spot for yourself. They are high schoolers, or at the Marin School, we also have 8th graders, and there's certainly a vast difference in, development between 8th grade and 12th grade, so it does matter. That is significant. There's, different interventions and levels of, being implementing control and structure that you're doing for an 8th grader than you would for a 12th grader, but it also depends on the individual kid and how much they need. So this idea of being a consultant more than a manager comes from Michael Riera, who was head of school at Marin Academy years ago and wrote a great parenting book. He wrote a few, but the one that this comes from is the the idea that we're moving in this transition from managing our kids' lives to consulting with them. And having said that, again, there's different developmental needs for the individuals at different age groups there, but it's generally a good concept. And I think, having our kids own this process as much as possible of homeschooling and, being in charge in the ways that they can is empowering for them. So, again, developmentally individualized in terms of how old your kid is and what their needs are, you can help them create structure. Using timers is a great way to minimize the power struggles that can happen. Let the timer do the work. Using video games and social media as a reward, not necessarily as a given. Setting a bedtime, we still have influence, and you probably have more influence right now because you're all together. So you can use that influence, and again, with a caveat of making sure it's not becoming a power struggle. If you're struggling in your home with the dynamics, this is a great opportunity to get some extra support. I'm happy to consult with you, see what we can come up with. And I know Chanel is a wonderful resource for executive functioning issues, but all spectrum of learning issues. But also she has sent me, and I'm happy to share with other people, a really bite-sized, color-coded, very well-organized schedule that you can use for helping set that structure. So let's go over some common issues that I am becoming aware of, and you might be dealing with some of this at home too. One of the most prominent is really seeing how kids that are naturally more extroverted are having a really hard time and feeling quite adrift with this new structure. Or lack of structure. They really thrived off having that built-in social time at school, and so they're really kind of floundering. A lot of the kids who are naturally more social and maybe actually quite good students at the same time. So I would say this is a good opportunity to use the positive aspects of technology, where they can have face-to-face contact in particular. And so getting on FaceTime or House Party or having the opportunity to connect with other people during the school day and study with them using one of these forms of technology. Google Hangouts, of course, is good too. That's the platform we're using at the school. And another issue that I'm really seeing is little to no motivation in school, both for kids that were already struggling with their motivation in school. It is tanked for some, but also in particular in seniors. Really noticing that they, second semester senior year tends to be the senioritis time anyway, but compounded with not having, the regular ways to celebrate and be honored, they're feeling, more hopeless about it and lacking in motivation. There's not an easy fix in terms of this one because motivation is such a personal thing and hard to instill in someone. But I think, reminding of the bigger picture can be really helpful. That they do want to graduate, that, this, it still counts what they're doing. It's not going to last forever. All of those things can be helpful. Executive functioning struggles, certainly some of them are exacerbated on this format. Time management, again, motivation issues, focus, attention issues, all of that. There are definitely adult who are great resources for kids that are going through this. Chanel is excellent resource. I can also support kids with executive functioning issues. So feel free to reach out to get some extra support around this. Too much screen time. Again, don't be afraid to set limits around this in the spirit of being the surrogate neocortex for your kids, and use, screen time as the dessert, not the main meal. Of course, their built-in screen time in terms of their school exposure. And so, it is really important to remind them to take breaks where they're not looking at a screen. It can be hard to disengage, even for us adults, but looking at something that is not a screen, books, puzzles, art, going outside, all of those things. Nice segue into not moving or going outside enough. Again, you can institute in your family that everyone goes outside once a day. At least it's really good for human beings to get exposure to sunlight and to move their bodies. There are lots of great indoor resources to move your bodies as well. There's the Down Dog, the membership that we have with our school, the For Yoga. There are a plethora of online classes that you can do, workout classes. YouTube is just, an incredible resource for this. There's more and more content going up. A lot of people's gyms have created online programming. So it's all there. And do it in, bite-size increments where it doesn't feel like overwhelming. And then finally, kids that are experiencing not enough structure. Human beings, again, do thrive when we have some set schedule in our lives. It is, relieving to us to know what is going to be expected. And sometimes it takes a while to kind of implement and find the right structure, the right schedule. It doesn't necessarily matter what it is, just that it's there and it's predictable. So, for kids that don't have any structure, giving them, a bedtime and a general wake-up time and, general daily schedule. Schools are taking care of some of this, especially the Marin School. But in the other time, that they're scheduling in, and again, Chanel can be a great resource in terms of this, scheduling in time to do other things besides school. So I hope that's been helpful. I am happy to both be a resource to people in terms of, supporting your particular family and what's going on with you, but also to be a resource to help parents share ideas with each other. I'm going to try and figure out a way to do that with Josh's help, that we can have somewhat of a clearinghouse of, tips and suggestions. We're all in this together, and we all have different strengths and adaptations. So I wish you well, and feel free to reach out if you have any more questions or need support. Take care. Bye.